Hey TBT sellers, and welcome back to the Teachers Boost channel. Today we're going through how to get your first reviews on TBT, which is such a big topic, especially if you are a small store or if you are just starting out. So, as we know, reviews are pretty good for social proof, but not only that, they also create a sense of trust for the buyers. Um, Also, TBT gives buyers rewards for leaving reviews. So let's look into how we can kind of use that to our advantage. I'll start off by showing you just exactly what your buyers will see because understanding their perspective is pretty helpful in this case. So after they have made a purchase, they can head over to the My Purchases page, and then they will have to wait 24 hours before they can leave a review. So as we can see here, the product at the top here, it says it's too early to leave a review. But on the second product, I am able to leave a review. So as a buyer, when I click leave a review, then this page will pop up to the right, and I'll have to answer a few questions. I'll give a star rating between 1 and 5 stars, a title, a brief description, and then some optional questions about expectations, value, grade levels, etc. So it's pretty quick, but it's really important. After they click submit, your buyers will be incentivized because they earn TPT credits for leaving that review. So for every $1 that they spent on the resource, they will receive 1 credit. And for every 1 credit, they get a 5 cent discount on their next purchase on TPT. So if we add that up, if they spend about $20 on a product, they get 20 credits, and that adds up to a $1 discount for future purchases. So it's not much, but it adds up pretty quickly if a buyer is making many purchases. The thing is that buyers are not always aware of this incentive. It's not really advertised very well on TBT, I've found. So a lot of people genuinely just don't know about it. Either that or it's just not at the forefront of their mind, so they end up not leaving a review. It's our jobs as sellers then to remind the buyers about the credit in as many places as we can. The first place would be in your product files. So we don't want to add a review page to the product PDF itself because it's pretty annoying for the buyer. Like if they're printing a product and then they find that a big leave a review page has been printed as well, I would get pretty frustrated if I were them. So instead, we can put it in a different PDF within the product folder. I personally like to attach it to the instruction manual or the thank you page or the terms of use page so that the buyer sees it as soon as they open it. But I would even go as far to say that the instruction manual is the best place for it because the likelihood of the buyer opening the instruction manual versus the thank you page is pretty high. The next place would be in your product description. So just a little note at the bottom of your description that reminds the buyers about the credits. Make it pretty clear and simple and use the word credit so that the buyer knows about the reward system. This is a side note, and it's so silly when I think about it, but many years ago, before I had a TPT store, so I was just a TPT buyer, and I bought many resources from TPT, and I was completely oblivious to the fact that the credits applied to every resource. I had it in my mind that only certain sellers had this sort of incentive because they had some sort of premium offer or premium subscription with TPT or something like that. So I would only review products when it was explicitly said in the description or in the folder, thinking that only those who advertised it had the opportunity or the privilege to give me credits. So it's really silly when I think back to it now. I'm like, oh, how oblivious I was. But At the time, as a buyer, I just really didn't understand the process. So, moral of the story is that there may be buyers out there who are as naive as I was, and it's important to make sure that they understand the credit system. The last place that you could remind buyers about reviews and credits would be outside of TPT, like through your email marketing or social media. Um, but I think it's important to remember that TPT doesn't condone additional incentives for leaving reviews. So we're not allowed to post on Instagram, for example, saying, hey, review my product and get a free resource or something like that. So yeah, avoid using any incentives other than the credits. It just helps encourage honest feedback on TPT. Once the reviews start rolling in, let's chat about what to actually do with them. So for good reviews, I would say that you should try to respond to them if possible, especially if your store is new. Um, it's a bit of a subjective opinion, but I truly think that responding to reviews shows that you care, shows that you are invested in the feedback and customer satisfaction. But I know it gets difficult as your store grows bigger to keep responding to reviews. But yeah, I would still prioritize it. I would say it's a good way to communicate with buyers. The other thing that you could do with good reviews is use them for social proof. So pull out some great quotes from your reviews and pop them in your product previews or on your social media or something like that. All right, then is the dreaded feeling of getting a bad review. So if you're anything like me, the thought of getting a bad review makes my heart drop. But negative reviews are part of the process. It happens to everyone, and the way that we handle them is what matters the most. I would say that there are three types of negative reviews that you could potentially receive. The first would be because of a technical issue where the buyer can't open the PDF or the link doesn't work or something like that. And that's often just because of some sort of technical glitch that's really not in your control and potentially not in the buyer's control either. So in this case, go ahead and reach out to TPT support as soon as possible. Provide them with the screenshot, explain a little bit about the problem. They will often then contact the buyer, help them fix the technical issue, and then remove the review since it wasn't actually about the product quality itself. A bad review could also come from the fault of the buyer. So I use this term very lightly. I just mean that maybe the buyer didn't read the description properly or misunderstood something and then ended up being disappointed by the product. In this case, I would focus on responding to the review in the most professional way possible, but while still getting your point across. So it might be an unpopular opinion, but I don't really go by the principle of the customer is always right. If I, as a seller, have explicitly stated that a resource is a boom card, for example, and then a buyer leaves a bad review because they were expecting a PDF, then I would definitely not let it slide. Again, it's just the way that I would personally go about it, but I would make sure to validate the buyer and show that I understand where the confusion was, but then make it known that I had outlined it in the product description, or something like that. The last reason for a bad review could come from the fault of the seller, so the fault of us. And this includes typos, wrong answers in the key, a broken link, or just mistakes in general. No matter how many checks we do before publishing, this can still happen, and it's absolutely okay. I would say hold off on responding and fix the resource first. The only reason I say this is because you can only respond once to a review. I know you can edit a review as well, but you can only do one initial response to a review. So rather wait until you can respond and confirm that the updated version is ready for download. Um, Obviously, also thank them for the feedback and for catching the mistake, and then just reassure them that you've fixed it. They can download the updated version. Cool. So that's it on handling reviews. And the last thing that I want to quickly address is if reviews affect our ranking. The answer is no, not directly, but also yes, probably indirectly. Sorry for the confusion. But TPT has never explicitly said that the algorithm takes reviews into account. So we don't know if reviews directly impact ranking. But what we do know is that the more reviews you get, the more likely viewers will trust your product and end up buying it. And the more viewers that convert to buyers, the higher your conversion rate will be. And the higher your conversion rate will be, the higher your ranking will be, because we know that the algorithm takes conversion rate into account directly. And if you have a higher ranking on the search pages, then you have better visibility. And if you have better visibility, then you get more sales, which ends up getting more reviews. And so that cycle just continues and continues. So while the review count might not be the direct influencing factor, it certainly sets off this train of events that contributes to your ranking. Okay, so that's all for this week. Thanks for joining me today, and thank you for the support as well. And don't forget that everything that we spoke about today, like getting reviews and boosting conversion rates, it all starts with your product getting seen on the search results. And to be able to get seen on the search results, you should be using SEO techniques. So we've got the Teachers Boost trending keyword tool, which will help you get there. If you haven't already started using it, you can just follow the link in the description to sign up. I will be back next week with a new video for TPT sellers, and I hope you have a great week further. And I'll see you then. Bye.